Tonight, the legendary reporter Bob Woodward offered this answer for why his reporting that Donald Trump has spoken with Vladimir Putin since he left office really matters.
CIA Director Bill Burns, quote, says, Putin manipulates, he's professionally trained to do that. Putin's got a plan just as he did when Trump was in office at playing Trump. Now, that's not some political opponent saying that about Trump. That's the CIA director.
Trump, for his part, played coy when he was asked directly, has he spoken to Vladimir Putin since he left office?
Can you say yes or no whether you have talked to Vladimir Putin since you stopped being president?
Well, I don't comment on that, but I will tell you that if I did, it's a smart thing. If I'm friendly with people, if I have a relationship with people, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, in terms of a country.
My inside source tonight is CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman. I mean, that was a dodge of whether or not he has spoken with him. How do you interpret that? Does that, I mean, to me, it sounds like they definitely have spoken, but I wonder how you hear when he doesn't answer.
No, I don't take it as that at all, but I take it as the fact that he wants people to think it might have happened, and I think he wants to not offend Vladimir Putin by saying openly, no, I wouldn't do that, or to look weak as if he wouldn't, be in touch with an adversary who is fighting against Ukraine while the U.S. is funding Ukraine's opposition. But I don't think that it means that he has done it. We talked to be clear, doesn't mean he didn't. But we talked to roughly 20 people who should have had some visibility into this, and none of them knew about it. It's certainly possible that it's happening on some kind of covert channel, or has. It's certainly possible that Trump suggested to people that he had talked to Putin in the past and didn't. All of these are within the realm of possibility. But I don't take that as, yes, he absolutely did, because he often leaves these things open so that he's not ruling something out.
But that's interesting. Even you spoke to 20 people who, generally you would think would know if these calls had happened.
And they didn't. And they
weren't sure.
They were not aware of this. They did not say, definitively this couldn't have happened, but that they were unaware of them. And that's a lot of people.
It's pretty, you couldn't imagine a situation where another former president has spoken to a world leader and his close staff and aides doesn't know about it.
No, although Trump does things so unusually, he's not staffed at every minute of the day, and at least back in the past when he left office and he went to Mar-a-Lago, it was a really tiny staff around him, and so all kinds of things could have happened. I asked him in an interview in September of 2021 if he had spoken to Putin, and he said no, but that doesn't mean that he hadn't either. I don't know that I take that dodge as evidence that he did.
So that was at the Economic Club of Chicago today that he did this interview with the Bloomberg editor. And there were these moments where he would be asked about something and he would kind of ramble. I mean, this is kind of classic Donald Trump for people who've covered him for a long time. He is now explaining it as the weave. This was his description of that.
So I said, no, I'm just telling you basic, it's called the weave. And I knocked out ISIS in a matter of weeks. It was supposed to take 4 to 5 years. I did it in a matter of weeks. We actually have a great military.
I was asking about tariffs. You've gone off about that. Should Google be broken up?
I just haven't gotten over something the Justice Department did yesterday, where Virginia cleaned up its voter rolls and got rid of thousands and thousands of bad votes.
The question is about Google, President Trump.
I mean, he's calling it the weave, but if his opponent was doing that, would he be so generous in his description?
No, and I think that he has challenged his rivals, both of them, mental acuity over and over again. Look, we are used to seeing him have a discursive speaking style, but it has gotten more rambling, it has gotten more incoherent, and it's gotten longer. That's the other thing, is that if you look back at the speech lengths from a couple of years ago, they were much shorter. Now, when he was in office, now they are 75 minutes, 90 minutes. His aides have been working to try to get them down for a while, but no, I think calling it the weave is PR to try to explain why he's talking this way.
I mean, what have you heard from sources about, shortly before we came on the air last night, and we showed part of this, which was this town hall, a friendly town hall that Trump was doing last night, where he only took a handful of questions, and then most of it looked more like this, where he was with the South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem. I mean, it was over half an hour that they were up there. He was requesting songs on little pieces of paper. his aides were tweeting about it in defense, but it was this weird moment where, I mean, we are 38 weeks out from a very close election, and
it was weird. I mean, I don't know of another word to describe last night. It was weird, and he does weird things like this, and he usually does them in private, or he does them with aides, or he does them on the Mar-a-Lago patio when he's DJing on an iPad. This was a rare time that people were seeing this in public. I think what happened was he got anxious because people were getting sick, and it was delaying the event. At the second Butler rally, people got sick twice, and you could see him get a little anxious when it was taking a very long time to make sure that they were okay. He went over at one point to talk to the Secret Service to ask if they could open the doors. The answer was no. So I think that he said, let's play the music. And I know he said, let's play the music so that people would start leaving, but then nobody left. And then they were all sort of swaying along with him, and then he was feeding off what they were doing. And you know this very well. The music thing is a big thing for him. It was how people would basically reset him in the White House.
yeah, well, it's also he would blare music on his plane. And what you were saying about Mar-a-Lago, I mean, this is that kind of what the Mar-a-Lago dinner party, that's kind of what he does at the end of them when people are there.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual to see it on the campaign trail at an ostensible town hall. You know, when you could just say to people, we're going to call it an early night because it's really hot and I don't want people getting sick, instead it turned into this. And I mean, Kristi Noem's face kind of said it all. She was the moderator for this panel, and she looked completely confused standing there with him.
Yeah, well, and this comes as you had some really interesting reporting over the weekend about Trump. One, he's not doing what he loves to do on the weekends typically, which is go golfing because of the security threats that are facing him. Now 2 assassination attempts, all the threats from Iran. But you also reported that the other thing that appears to be on his mind in the closing days of this election is money, and that he was quite frustrated that he is spending so much time having to court donors and raise money instead of being out on the campaign trail at rallies.
Yeah, so my colleagues and I, Jonathan Swan and Shane Goldmarker, and I had a story about this money situation where he is irritated. And we've been told by people on the campaign that they will be fine in the closing weeks of the campaign. But he's not at parity with Harris in terms of fundraising. She had a huge last 3 months, I think it was 80 days. And so what was notable about it is that he's at this dinner with these incredibly wealthy donors or potential donors who are members of a group called the American Opportunity Alliance. Some of them are huge pro-Israel backers. And he starts trashing Jews who don't back him. He uses a slur to describe Kamala Harris's mental state. It goes on and on and on like this. And he seemed to have, according to the 7 people we talked to who were briefed about this dinner, it was as if he had no sense of who he was in front of or who he was talking to. And so I think, yes, there is anxiety about money. That's clear, and I've heard that from multiple people. I also just think that he is, and this kind of relates to last night, it's like he's devoid of context. It's like he's just sort of showing up and behaving in various places.
What do you read into that? I mean, with 3 weeks to go, is he just a different candidate in this? I mean, is he just older? Is he just viewing this differently?
I think he's older. I think that he is, I think there's less of a filter than there used to be, which is what happens when people get older. I also think that this is based on a number of people who have been around him or talked to him, that he has seemed somewhat different since the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania, and since Joe Biden stopped being a candidate.
And you also reported just at that dinner, Betsy DeVos was there,
Yes.
Trump's education secretary, which stood out to me because she resigned on January 6th, after January 6th.
After January 6th, and blamed his rhetoric for escalating the violence that took place at the Capitol. I think it speaks volumes about how durable his support is within the Republican Party, and how people who have been oppositional to him in various ways at various times realize that they are not going to be able to be against him and beat Harris, which they see as a crucial imperative.
Maggie Haberman, fascinating 3 weeks ahead of us. Thank you very much for the great reporting.